Welcome to the Spaceless Realms Podcast. I'm not your usual host, but I go by many different names, and we're here with Logan, aka Wolverine. This is Legion, aka Kalki, aka Anthony of Egypt. It's a pleasure to be here. Today, we're going to be talking about something that's extremely important because, in these days and ages, we all know the pandemics, as well as, fabricated ideas of pandemics, have been a daily occurrence in our lives. Now, a lot of people don't know what the root of pandemics are. And I think it's really important to explain that because pandemics are always zoonotic. Now, for those that don't know what zoonotic means it's animal based. So anybody who's eating animal byproducts, with the exception of indigenous people that are hunting and fishing traditionally, you've got some issues that are going to be happening in your lives, which are going to affect your health, are going to affect the health of the planet, are going to affect a number of different aspects of your lives, which you definitely want to be aware of. So we're going to be talking about pandemics today because super important aspect of that is that we're currently living the beginning of the H5N1 avian flu pandemic, which is just a restart of the old avian flu that they were talking about. Now, for all of you, I'm sure you know that all the previous pandemics before COVID were actually relating to what was going on with animal-based products. But suddenly with COVID, they stopped talking about animal agriculture. Now, with swine flu, they talk about the swine flu. With the avian flu, they talk about the avian flu. The mad cow disease, they talk about the mad cow disease. But suddenly now with COVID, they never explained that it was all animal related. And of course, they encourage you to eat animal byproducts and all kinds of other products like, derivatives from that, like milk and cheese and eggs. And they don't tell you that that's the source of the pandemic. So we're going to be talking about that today.
Yeah, I've seen some people get sick and they're not able to recover from the sickness. It's like the sickness still stays around in their body, but they're not able to purge themselves and cleanse themselves of it. It's like for example, if you envision the body of how capable it is to endure anything you put it through, whether that's strengthening your muscles, strengthening your joints, your bones, if you think about it, you could really speed up your regeneration speed of how fast you're able to heal and how fast your body is able to regenerate itself. It's honestly so amazing how when you cut yourself, your body heals. Like that is so cool. Like I just find that so fascinating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yo, and let's talk about that today too, because that's all based on nutrition. That's all based on what you put in your body. Now, water is life and food is medicine, and we are what we drink, what we eat, what we sleep, what we dream. What we sleep in the sense of like what we are, experiencing in our sleep, which is the regenerative capability of our body in sleep realm, in REM dream sleep, which actually allows us to regenerate and heal those particular aspects of our body or in meditation modes. So it's actually really amazing to see what the body can do, like you just said. And nutrition is the number one aspect of that. Water is super important. Now, some of you might be wondering why I'm drinking a beer right now. Very interesting fact: during pandemics, you can actually protect yourself with good quality liquor, good quality spirits, good spirits, rather than alcohol, which means evil spirits in Arabic, as we've explained a little bit before this.
Mm.
Now, there's a difference between evil spirits and good spirits. Everybody would know that. If you go to the liquor store, you're getting liquor. But if you're trying to buy alcohol, which is evil spirits, like say, I don't know, Coors Light or Labatt or Molson or something that's commercially made with shitty quality water and everything else, that's going to make you sick during a pandemic because the water is infected. But if you're drinking something with filtered water, with spring water, that's well fermented, that's properly done, it's going to preserve you. It's an antibacterial, it's a disinfectant. You can cure cuts with vodka. You can cure cuts with, a lot of people used to use a thimble of whiskey mixed in with something else to cure certain diseases. So, or
Mm.
Jagermeister, for example, which is a very, 56 different types of herbs that are made to actually protect and to heal. It's a cough syrup. It's a number of different, it's a, it has a number of different, those 56 herbs probably have about 3,000 different diseases that they can cure. So same thing with cannabis, same thing with apple cider vinegar. Same thing with because of the malic acid in the apples. So you need to have a good diet. Now, a good diet would start with a plant-based diet or an indigenous diet, a wild diet, a diet which is actually based on nature. Now, all these processed foods that we have, all of these over-processed, heavily intoxicating foods that are fried, deep fried, that are reprocessed with chemical additives, that's one of the main sources. But the number one source of the pandemic and the problems with diseases, which is explained by Dr. Elizabeth Blackburn, who's a 2007 Nobel Prize laureate for her book The Telomere Effect, which explains how veganism properly good, like, ital, like in a rasta sense, plant-based but natural, plant-based, organic life can cure over 500 different diseases and reverse aging in the body, reverse those diseases, whereas animal ag and byproducts will actually destroy you and cause those 500 diseases.
So where does the saying come, an apple a day keeps the doctor away?
That I would believe would come from the malic acid in the apple. Now, I can't break that down biochemically or explain it from a chemist or biologist perspective, but I know that there's antioxidants in apples. There's even more in certain types of fruits. Now, it prevents aging. It protects from certain sicknesses in apple cider vinegar, which when you think about it, fresh apple cider is just fresh apple juice that's unfiltered. And apple cider vinegar with the mother in it, I don't know why they call it the mother, but it's like those aspects of apple cider, which kind of gives it the cloudy aspect, which, is very good for you because they don't filter it out. It's kind of like having the fibers in your food, not filtering out the fibers or not filtering out the pulp in your orange juice, or using the skin of the apple, to eat. The skin is usually what has the most minerals and vitamins and antioxidants in it. If you look at the inside of the apple, it's white, but something that's darker, like like Tupac Amaru said it, Tupac Amaru Shakur, the shining serpent that gives praise to the goddess. He said the darker the berry, the sweeter the juice. Mm-hmm. So when something is darker, it's actually better for you, has more antioxidants, generally has more nutritional values, more minerals, more elements, more vitamins. So super important to have that. We need, if you want to think on a supernatural level, if you want to be supernaturally endowed, if you want to be esoterically inclined, if you want to be metaphysically aware, you want superfoods. Now, superfoods is not going to be iceberg lettuce or Wonder Bread or something like that. You want dark foods. You want, like, instead of lettuce, you might want to buy some kale or some cabbage that's like dark cabbage, like purple cabbage or something, or dinosaur kale, or some curly kale, or some red lettuce that's curly, that's got more colors, more elements in it. And at the end of the day, this isn't reverse racism. That shit doesn't exist anyways. But you got to remember that if you're eating a white vegetable, there's not going to be a lot of nutritional value to that.
Well said. Very well said. Okay, I want to talk about, this is very encompassing, but I want to speak about the values in life. Like, what should you put first? Like your health, your well-being.
Well, I mean, to me, the number one aspect of that, like I said, to me is indigenous and plant-based living, italism, fruitarianism, liquiditarianism. Liquiditarianism is the reason why I'm drinking a beer right now too, beyond the preserving and antibacterial aspects of that, because this is good filtered water. It's a beer from Guelph, which is a smaller town in a smaller city in Ontario. So it's good quality, beer. It's not the best, it's still commercial. But if you're getting local microbrewery beers or local microbrewery cider, now cider, super good. Apple cider, fruit cider, super good in a pandemic. There's a reason why during the pandemic, a lot of people are purchasing alcohol. They're purchasing liquor, I should say, or purchasing good spirits. Now, some people don't tell the difference between good spirits and bad spirits, but that can actually preserve your body from sickness and infection, because it's going to kill the bacteria. The stronger the alcohol, the more it's going to kill the bacteria. But the apple cider with the malic acid and with all the different elements, if you read on the benefits of apple cider, like I said, I'm not a biologist or a chemist, but I am an intersectional and interdisciplinary PhD and postdoctoral scholar from the University of Alberta in modern languages and cultural studies. And so the reason I'm saying that is because some people might think that we're just speaking like that about conspiracy theories or something. But just remember, it's not a question of if the next pandemic is coming, it's when. Because as long as you have a sick society, you have colonial society, you have people that are eating unhealthy foods, that are being fed, force-fed unhealthy foods in food deserts, in places where they don't really have a lot of food options, there's always going to be something that's going to cause some kind of pandemic, whether it's globally or locally or nationally. It starts usually locally, and then it goes to regionally, and then it goes to provincially, and then it goes to nationally, and then the next thing you know, it's a global pandemic. So if we all change our diet, if everybody today listened to this podcast for some reason and everybody decided to switch their diet up and eat plant-based and indigenous, or eat fruitarian, or eat ital. Ital comes from the word vital, which is from Rastafarian diet. Now imagine, for example, Dr. Sebi talked about that. Dr. Sebi, it passed away now, but a lot of people posit that he was actually murdered, even if he was in his older ages. So because he was talking about italism and how to eat a natural fruit and plant-based diet. Somebody else who was in the industry as well, a lot of people in the industry got murdered for talking about a plant-based diet. Prodigy from Mobb Deep made the skit Be Healthy on the Dead Breath album, started talking about how to be healthy in a natural way and how to eat a plant-based diet. And the next thing you know, after his album Hegelian Dialectic, he got murdered. Then Nipsey Hussle makes a documentary on Dr. Sebi, he gets murdered. And he said, even before he died, Nipsey Hussle said from Eritrea, from Ethiopia and Eritrea, actually said, if I die after doing this documentary, if they murder me for doing this documentary, y'all better ride for me. He said that. And what he meant by that is you better rep and support the causes that I was supporting. Now, he was supporting independent businesses. He was supporting non-slave labor principles. He was actually trying to change society as a gangster, a conscious revolutionary gangster. That's super important. You can be revolutionary and be gangster. Your gang becomes a revolutionary gang. But, society doesn't want us to know how to get healthy, because then their hospitals would shut down. People, they'd be out of business. They wouldn't sell. Big pharma is tied into that as well, too. If you're using chemicals, compounded chemicals, that are loosely based on natural plant indigenous medicines that were stolen and appropriated from those cultures, you're never going to get healthier in that sense, because you're using chemicals to suppress the root of what's causing those symptoms instead of addressing it. You're suppressing and blocking receptors in your brain instead of actually activating your brain to heal itself.
For example, with COVID, you saw how fast they could change the world. Like they got people wearing masks in like 1 week, or even less than that, just even if in a few days. So if you imagine like the power that they have to control a whole world in that way, imagine if we all just came together. It sounds very hippie like, but if we all came together, we could change the world.
We can.
Now,
imagine if we had like billions of views on this podcast, or 1 million views on this podcast. We would change the world on a massive scale right now. But of course, they're trying to suppress this. Now, I've gotten shut down quite a few different times. We've gotten suppressed a lot of different times. We're getting blocked even right now. But I hope that the few people who listen to this actually share this podcast. I'm going to share it as soon as we're done with this. Mm-hmm. A lot of people hopefully are going to share this, but even if it takes years before this is seen, I hope that some people are going to say this was prophetic. He was predicting the next pandemic before it even happened, but it's not a prediction. That's an absolute certainty, in the sense that unless the whole globe actually shifts their diet drastically, which is statistically very unlikely to happen, but could happen. And at the end of the day, it happens from information being shared and, exchanged between different people in those situations. Now, knowledge is power for a reason. Know the ledge.
Know the ledge. Know the ledge. Knowledge. Know the ledge, bro. I've never heard that before. Know the ledge. Shit. Yeah, the ledge. I explain that more. No, what ledge?
That's from a Tupac movie called Juice. Actually, Know the Ledge. But the idea is, if you know the ledge, you know where the drop off is. You know where the abyss is. You know where the cliff is. If you know where the ledge is, you know where it drops off, and where you get to that end. You're not going to just go and keep running straight and then be like a lemming in a suicide run, and then just, or like, like the pigs in the Bible that just run off a cliff and jump into the ocean after Jesus casts all those spirits into them to get the evil spirits out of Legion. The ledge. You're not going to jump off when you see it, unless you know that you can make it to the ocean and you can dive in and start swimming, and then you have a place to go back out and you'll be safe. But if you know what the ledge is, you know the ledge of the limit, in a sense. It's like saying know your limits.
Know your limits.
Then again, push your limits as well. If you feel, like you said, like I said, and like we've said before, if you feel like you can jump off that cliff and you can do some crazy stuff, you know, and you can dive into the ocean and refresh yourself and then go back out on a beach close by, or you can climb back up the cliff and get back out there. And then a lot of people will be like, wow, that's also knowing the ledge. But you got to know your capacity and you got to push your limits, but you also have to push them in a healthy fashion. You don't want to do something suicidal.
That's very powerful. Like, would you like to add anything to that?
You know, I would say I wish that everybody would realize how important nutrition is, because like I said, we are what we eat, what we think, you know, what we dream, who we associate with, what we put in our body. So if you realize that everything in our body is constituted from the food and the water and the liquids that we put in there and the medicines that we use, this what we smoke, what we ingest, the drugs that you do if you use any, then you realize you're just a compendium of all of these living and inorganic entities, these chemicals, these products, everything. So what do you want to be? Do you want to be a bunch of Nazi made chemicals? By the way, if anyone doesn't know, look up the book called Blitzed, Drugs in the Third Reich, and it explains how the Nazis invented big pharma and crystal meth. So really good, very well documented, amazing book. I randomly fell upon it when I was in the Gulf Islands where you're at right now. And that changed my life because I realized Nazis created crystal meth, and Ritalin and Adderall and Dexedrine, which they give to children to focus their concentration, is basically meth for kids. So don't do that. Don't poison yourselves. You go to the drugstore every day. It's a drugstore and there's a war on drugs. And the war on drugs is a war on plants. And you go and take drugs, but you have a war on plants. How does that make sense? Everything's been inverted in these last days. If you're a religious person or a spiritual person, you realize when you live in the last days, everything has been turned around. Good has been referred to as evil. Evil has been referred to as good. If you're Muslim, you would know that what they say is haram sometimes is halal. What they say is halal sometimes is haram. So you have to be able to know the ledge. You have to be able to know the difference and figure out what those problems are. Because if you don't know, you don't have that knowledge and that information, you're going to trust what's being given to you and delivered by those priests, by those mullahs, by those imams, by those rabbis, by those nuns or those monks or whoever it is, and you just don't question anything. But the thing is, even in Buddhism and the Eastern traditions, Buddha said, question everything, including what I said. But who questions Buddha these days? Nobody I've ever heard of.
So how do you flip the perspective on evil into good? Like, how do you just flip it around?
But you can't just think, oh, well, if evil is good and good is evil, then I'm going to worship Satan and I'm going to hate God. That doesn't work that way. To me, finding the middle path, which is what Buddha said, finding the middle path is the equilibrium. He also said, question everything I said. Now, the middle path is very difficult to find, but you have to find the balance. You have to realize that some beings, for example, they say a lot of religions have said that indigenous people, that African people, that Asiatic people, South American people, diasporic people, Aboriginal people have been considered, Muris and Kuris, I should say, have been considered to be evil or demonic. Now, that's an inversion. They're actually blessed, immortal beings. They're in infinite, unfathomably beautiful supernatural beings. So that's something that's an easy inversion. But then you can't just be like, well, I'm going to go rape and kill because that, in the last days, everything says that it's inverted. So Kalki said, love is hate and hate is love. No, that's what the system did to us. They told us this. But in the last days, they told us that, for example, the greatest princes and princesses and empresses and mystics would actually become the most fallen and dejected criminals. And vice versa, that people that were considered to be great saviors and world leaders, Maitreyas or whoever it is, were actually dejected, fallen beings, but they're considered to be great world leaders. So look at politicians, look at, the Pope, look at the Dalai Lama sucking on a little boy's tongue. Everything has been flipped around. but you can easily tell what good and evil is when you use your own judgment, your own recognition, your own cognition, your own volition, your own conscience, and your superconscious and your subconscious, and you meld those together and you realize who you are is based on your consciousness. It's based on your ability to reason and cognitively be aware of the problems in this world. Don't just trust what everybody gives to you. Question everything, like Buddha said it.
When should you expect to figure it out? To come to
I
that
would say
realization?
anytime. Quantum reality, quantum shift actually happens on a daily basis, on a microfractional basis. Depending on what you were going to answer right now, my answer is based on that. If you had said different words, I would have answered differently. So quantum reality is infinite. But in the Bible, in the Quran, in the Torah, depending on how you interpret those scriptures or misinterpret them, most of the religions will tell you in a patriarchal sense. So please don't misinterpret that. If you're a religious person, you have to realize most of the people will tell you, don't think for yourself, trust what we're telling you. But if you start thinking for yourself, you realize quantum reality is infinite. And those religions that are patriarchal and that are oppressive and try to force you into submission are usually trying to tell you everything that you should do and that you shouldn't do without questioning anything. And if you question something, they tell you you're demonic. Now, I guarantee you that some people will watch this and think he's demonic because he's drinking a beer while he's talking about this, or something else, or he's questioning religion, or he's talking about Buddha and Buddha is a demon, or something like that. The more ignorant we become, the less we have the ability to reason.
So would you say that the people who do have that conception of you, are they getting in their own way of blocking themselves from knowing a different level of awareness? Like, the whole conception around getting in your own way and blocking yourself.
Yes, definitely. But also, I'm not gonna say that anyone who questions me is no. But like people that don't even want to keep an open mind to what I'm saying, I'm like, question it, question what I'm saying, but question it knowledgeably, question it in awareness. Don't just question it for the sake of questioning anything. When Buddha said question everything, he didn't mean question it no matter what. He meant question it if that resonates with you or if it doesn't.
Huh. Yeah. Resonating with every atom in your body.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yo, my phone is almost dead right now, so I'm hoping, is that cool if we close the space at this point? Because I'm like, I don't want it to shut off and then we don't have a proper ending, you know?
Let's close the space.
That would be like, oh my God, the pandemic is here. No, no.
Okay,
No, but
spaceless.
be aware. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, Spaceless Realms is closing the space.
Yeah,
Yo,
no,
wait.
no. Remember, even if there's a crazy pandemic, which there will be eventually, and they tell you wear a mask, do this, do that, question everything and exercise your right for your freedom and your sovereign right to be yourself. And don't trust what the government is telling you, no matter what.
All right, we close the space. Bless. Peace.
Blessed. It's been an absolute pleasure.